Hello, and thank you for joining us. We are going to dive into a very fascinating topic, which is how startup innovation is revolutionizing the fan engagement experience. The way fans consume sports is constantly changing, whether it's in your living room, bringing you as close to the game as possible, or the fact that you can even hold the game in your hand. So the nirvana is always getting our fans closer to the action, real time, allowing tech and sports brands to really come together and connect with fans in an authentic way. So we're really going to dive into a lot of these areas. Joining us to help build out this discussion and what it takes to bring ideas to the playing field, you will hear from startup founder and CEO Josh Bryant of Fangage, as well as serial startup founder and investor Jose Vieitez with Comcast SportsTech. So I am Jenna Kurath. I'm Vice President of Startup Partner Development at Comcast and head of Comcast NBCU Sports Tech, where we are investing in and developing the next great sports technologies. We happen to be in the middle of our selections process, so Jose and I will give a little bit of background into what it takes to pick the right types of startups to really innovate with, but it's all about helping to shape the future of sports. So let's dive right in. So Josh, I will start with you. You are founder and CEO of Fangage, and you are at the point of a special anniversary that you're celebrating this year. So could you tell us a little bit more about Fangage and a bit more on your journey?
Yeah, thanks, Jenna, for the introduction. Also, before I jump into it, I really want to give a shout out to #sports. I think what they've been doing over the past 4 or 5 years has really broadened the scope, brought a lot of awareness to companies like ours, especially in the sports and entertainment business, because of what they're doing. Events like these, their daily, email alerts, like the sports and entertainment business is really booming, and hashtags on in the frontier of that awareness. And so I'm super excited about this. I read the publication on the regular, so to be on here to talk about Fangage is truly an honor. Fangage is a platform that myself and my co-founder Emmanuel Sanders, we've been doing this for 5 years. We're going on the 5-year mark. And it's a platform that allows fans to upload pictures to celebrities, and then the celebrities can sign those photos through our autograph system and send them right back to the consumer. And kind of what we're hoping to accomplish is we're just trying to put a new spin on the memorabilia market. I think we're seeing consumer trends starting to change a little bit, where fans are looking less to get those signed balls and gloves and bats and hats, and more looking for experiences that are unique to them, something that they can brag about and no one else in the world can do. And that's what we're focused on at Fangage. And like you said, we're 5 years in, which is usually the make and break. We're super fortunate to make it to 5 years, because we know that the odds are really, stacked against us. But also this 5-year mark is usually where you see those startups that last. That's where they make the biggest jump. So we're on the diving board, ready to jump, and hopefully we get a little spring to it.
Excellent. And Jose, you crossed paths with Josh around 2018, and we'll dive into that a little bit more, but would love for you as well to share a little bit more about your entrepreneurial journey experience and what paved your way to where you are today.
Excellent. Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I've been doing startups, I think since I can remember, since I was maybe 5, 6 years old. And okay, I'll clarify. I've been doing businesses since I've been that old. And eventually I learned that startups are their own unique thing. When I was little, I would, sell vegetables. I would, I had an iPod repair company at some point in college. I would sell textbooks en masse. But at a certain point, living in Silicon Valley, started working on building my own startups, and I built 5 that you could officially call startups over the years. At any given moment, I'm working on something. And specifically in 2013, in Colorado, we started up Boomtown Accelerators, where the goal was to take all the lessons that I've learned over the years in building and failing and some succeeding startups, and trying to scale that out and teaching and helping entrepreneurs to not make the same mistakes, and to help them build good companies. So there, along with my three co-founders, we started that up in 2013, and eventually Josh's company Fangage went through our program in 2018. That was an honor, and it's exciting to see where they're at today.
And I should mention that Boomtown is our accelerator operator, both a farm and sports tech. So really, truly our partners in making sure that we help really do the intention of that accelerator, which is compressing multiple years of learnings into a really compressed amount of time to help accelerate your path to a sustainable business. So, well, Josh, would love to go back and get a little bit of insight on Fangage and your origin story. How did it all start 5 years ago?
5 years ago, I guess you would consider that version 2.0 of our product. It actually started about a decade ago. I played college football at SMU, and all four of my college roommates got drafted into the NFL. And so right out of college, I started building websites for them. And through those websites, I wanted to sell their memorabilia. You know, this was around the time where eBay was booming, where you go on eBay and you'll see, you know, signed posters and cards for sale. And a lot of the players were frustrated because they might stay outside of a stadium and sign for a fan, and then they go on eBay the next day and something they signed was on eBay for $15. And so you saw a lot of frustration from the players, you know, in particular my college roommates that got drafted into the league, you know, and there was some frustration about, you know, people profiting off of, you know, the players' autographs. So 10 years ago, I started building websites for them, and I said, all right, well, let's sell your memorabilia through your website. So now you control, you know, who's buying it. You have better control of kind of who's selling it. And that was 10 years ago. And through that, we started doing live autograph signings on Facebook Live. Right when live videos started to roll out, we were having contests where fans can tune into a live feed, get a photo signed, and everyone can see it. That was 10 years ago. It went fine. We made money, but it was an old business. You know, there was inventory, there was postage stamps and returns and just all those things that didn't make sense anymore. At the time, you know, 2014, 2015, you see the rise of Uber, you see the rise of Airbnb, you see the rise of all these companies that didn't have inventory, yet they were making tremendous returns. So we were like, what can we do to get to a place where we don't have all these inventories, we don't have all the returns and have to worry about postage? Emmanuel Sanders and I, this was during his time with the Denver Broncos. Again, he's my co-founder, and we were at the Denver airport. A teenage kid came up to us in 2015, asked him to take a selfie in Snapchat. They took the selfie together, and then that teenager asked Emmanuel to sign the photo they just took with his finger in Snapchat. And both immediately, Emmanuel and I were both like, whoa, that was really dope and super easy. Do you think people will pay to get digital autographs on photos that they've taken with you or of you? And that was kind of the first initial aha moment. And so we got on our plane, and there was no hesitation. There was no lapse in, you know, time. Like, we got to work, you know, we got to work, and we, you know, plotted out this idea about, you know, digital autographs on personal photos. So we did our research, figured out who was in the market. We landed. That was on a Friday. On that next Tuesday, we started building our, you know, version 2, which originally was called the E. Sanders app. It was just for him. And we launched that February 2015. And now it's called Fangage. So 5 years later, we're expanded a lot, and we'll, you know, I'm excited to, you know, let everybody know kind of, you know, where we are now. But you know, the concept idea was born at the, you know, Denver airport.
Well, I imagine, Jose, you can relate to this in a lot of ways. It's what was their eureka moment where you saw a need out there. What's kind of shaped some of the startups that you've taken on, and why?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the traits that we look for in entrepreneurs, that that we invest in, and it's that kind of mentality, which is as you walk around, just identifying problems, just seeing what around you, just having perhaps it's correlated to a growth mentality or not, but it's going around you and not being okay with things being broken and not complaining about them, but actually looking for ways to fix them. I have about 10 notes sections in my phone of just both problems I identify and ideas to try and solve them. And at some point, whenever I'm like, hey, I have some extra time, which is less these days with 2 kids, I'll go in and start thinking through which one of those I'd want to pursue. But what we find is a lot of successful entrepreneurs aren't necessarily just in the back. You know, you have this idea of them just being in the garage building a product and then emerging out into the world and convincing people to sell it, and they all start buying it. It usually comes from a need that they identify in the world and thinking, I wonder if I'm the only one that experiences that, or do you think others would too? And then they start digging into it and learning about that problem. And you see kind of an example of that with Josh, at the airport, where he sees them and thinks, okay, where, who else would benefit from this kind of opportunity? And plus, but it was also shaped by many years of his learnings, right? Of seeing the autograph market kind of not working, or the pains of it. You mentioned sometimes like athletes get sick from signing, right? So you have all these data points in your head, and then you run into a problem, and you come up with a solution for that problem. And so for me, it's always been identifying a need in the marketplace. For example, in college, it actually came up with being frustrated with how expensive textbooks were. $250 for a textbook, and you need 3 or 4 of those. And I went on Amazon and saw the previous edition of the same book for about $5, and I was like, wait a minute, like this, why is this so cheap? And then I looked into it in the digital preview and saw that the only difference was that the pages were shifted forward a couple of pages, and then the questions in the back were the same, they were just shuffled, but the content was identical. So I bought a book for myself, and I accidentally clicked twice and bought 2 copies of it. So then I had this extra copy, and I said, hey, does anyone want to buy it for $50 instead of $250? And I had like 10 emails that came through just for that book. And I said, wait a minute, you've got 8 people who haven't, 9 people who haven't had their demand satisfied. So I went on and I bought 8 more books, and then I sold them within a couple of days. And pretty soon, my entire dorm room was stacked with textbooks for every single freshman class, biology, chemistry, econ, and I pretty much paid for most of my tuition just by reselling those books. And that's really my mentality in everything I'm going. I'm just always not so much coming up with ideas, but identifying problems, and then the ideas kind of come from that as you talk to people.
Makes complete sense, and I would imagine, Josh, that you can relate to that. There was definitely the Snapchat moment that put you down a digital first path, with all the learnings that you had leading into that. But what were some of the mistakes or challenges along the way? We often learn so much from those. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, there were quite a few, and I'm gonna, try to pinpoint those top 2 or 3 that really just, not necessarily kept me up at night, but enhanced that anxiety of this isn't gonna work. I think, we were in a startup culture where, a lot of people were starting up businesses, and, there was this, common trend of you're going to fail, everyone was like, the narrative was always, you tell somebody that, what you're trying to do, and like immediately it's, well, that's good idea, but you're probably going to fail. So, the first thing for me, and this was, I had to reprogram how I was raised, how I was taught, growing up. And, I was taught, if you want something, go get it. Don't ask for shit. Don't ask for anything. Like, if you want it, go get it. But truth is, that's the opposite of how a startup is going to grow, because I'm not a business major. I didn't know what a financial model was until I went to Boomtown in 2018. But those are all the things that you have to know to be able to build a business. And so, me having to reprogram my mind about trying to do everything on my own, not reaching out and asking for help. Like that was a really big obstacle for me because, and this is kind of like, I don't want to pigeonhole or anything, but that's a common mindset of Black families, is that you're on your own. Don't go asking for help because it's not going to be given to you because of who you are and what you look like. So starting out, I had that mentality, and things didn't work out well. And it took me, I found a mentor who pretty much reprogrammed my mind and said, Josh, that's not how you're going to be successful. And he's like, and if you don't change that right now, what they're telling you about it not working and not surviving is going to work. Like you have to completely change how you view business, how you view people, if you want to take that extra step. So that was really big, just reprogramming what was instilled in me as a youth. But the second big problem area and obstacle, is just that knowledge. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go play college football, but I was the first person in my family to go to college. So I didn't have that knowledge of finances. I didn't have that knowledge of business savvy passed down to me. So yeah, I had this concept and this idea, but honestly, I was frightened by it. I was frightened that, someone smarter than me, someone with more money than me, someone with more, knowledge of what it takes is going to come in, see what we're trying to build and take it. And it happened. I talk about version 1 of the platform, which was called the E. Sanders app. The developers that built that, they try to take advantage of me. They try to take advantage of my youth, my inexperience. And honestly, they tried to take my idea and run with it, even though, they built it for me. And so like, I learned right off the bat that, one, like I gotta, be more confident in my skills and my ability, but I need to learn more. That's why I went, thankfully was accepted into Boomtown. I grew up there, but also, I just had, it's just reprogramming of the mind, realizing that it's okay not to know everything, but also, it's also okay to ask for help. So, those are definitely the two big obstacles that I had to overcome, right when we started this thing.
Well, it's such a perfect segue because you're right. That open mindset, the willingness to learn, the willingness to challenge your assumptions are really at the heart of what an accelerator can do. So Jose, I would love to hand this over to you. What was it about Fangage that made it the right company to invest in? And I think that there was a pivotal role that Boomtown played in helping to steer you around some of your go-to-market thinking as well. So we'll dive into that next.
Yeah, absolutely. When Fangage came over, it was it's a testament of what we look for in companies we invest in, and it's the team. It's the individuals behind the company that they're building. Because when they came to us and said, we have this digital signature app, my first thought was, okay, cool. Do people need this? I'm not, necessarily I don't think I have a single autograph, so I wasn't the target audience, or maybe I am because I need to get autographs. And then I thought, is it defensible? Is it, how do you build a business out of this? And so there were a lot of questions there, but what really stood out to us were the individuals who were on the team. Specifically, one of their co-founders also is his name was Fernando, and he's a strong engineer, and I knew him because he had been mentoring for Boomtown for a while. And so through that relationship, I thought, okay, they have the ability to build this. I didn't know Josh that much. We interviewed him and everything, and you hear, okay, he's able to bring somebody on like Emmanuel Sanders, that if anything, he's got plenty of opportunities and things to spend his time on, but he's choosing to work on this, regardless of knowing about his business savvy or whatever else. Okay, his opportunity cost is high, so he's working on this, and there must be something to it. So what stood out to us then was, and also the story of how this came about, where it wasn't, they just came up with this idea and try to get people to buy it. And so that really goes into a lot of our mentality and who we look for in investments. It's entrepreneurs who fall in love with a problem, and then they look for ways to address that problem firstly, by getting to know the customer intimately and how they behave and what their needs are and what their needs will be, and then creating solutions for that problem that may change, and they may change over time, which is very different than, kind of I mentioned before, coming up with a problem than finding the people who want to buy it. It's perhaps there's a strategy for that, but for us, we just love problem solvers. And we find that by falling in love with that problem, you can really add value and you can build really good businesses that people are willing to pay for and that you're really helping people. So that's really what attracted us to them. That was, and that's what attracts us to, you know, what we have over 160 investments now over the years. And that's probably a common thread among all of them.
We make a great point. Emmanuel Sanders' huge operating or opportunity cost of where he spends his time and why. But I would imagine that created this sort of natural inclination to think, oh, we should approach athletes first. Yet you've completely changed your go-to-market opportunity there because of that. Again, if you're going to ask for an athlete to spend an hour of their time doing these digital signature experiences, they have a high cost per minute of value of their time. So how did you learn that lesson? And then how did you focus your go-to-market strategy in a way that has led to your success, frankly, at this point?
Yeah, and it's really cool to hear Jose talk about, you know, that, you know, those initial, you know, our pitch to Boomtown, and, you know, it's really cool to hear some of his thoughts. But you know, it also just brings back the memories of me sitting on this side of the call, and, you know, us pitching to Boomtown and knowing in my heart, like, their biggest question was, you know, can this thing scale? And I knew in my heart, like, where we were at the time, it was really hard to see this company scale, because then the biggest reason is what you just mentioned. You know, our costs per session, per autograph session was, you know, well over $5,000. You know, we had to pay to play. Yeah, we had Emmanuel, and, you know, he spearheaded our user experience for our celebrity app. But even, you know, using him, you know, you don't want to go to that well too many times, right? And so for us, it was figuring out, like, how the heck can we get the celebrities to use this platform without us having to pay $10,000 per hour, you know? And so after Boomtown, we were fortunate enough to raise some cash from our first angel investor. And with that cash, we went out and we booked 100 events, and it was very expensive, but that's why we went out and raised the money. And, you know, but through that, we were able to show the athletes and the celebrities that this is something that they should do to improve their own brand. Not only, it wasn't so much about us making money. It was really like us showing them, like, this is a way that you can give back to fans without going to the mall and sitting there for 2 hours and shaking 1,000 hands and getting a cold 2 weeks, 2 days later. And so for us, it was all about reprogramming them about what our product is, showing them this is a memorabilia. You're not going to see this on eBay for $15. You're going to see it on social media. You're going to see it printed out, but people aren't going to profit off of you. So it was reprogramming, them so they can see what it was. And quite frankly, at Boomtown, we built our B2B model. We realized, through talking, on the first day of Boomtown, what they force you to do is they force you to reach out to your early adopters. So we called and we contacted 100 of our first early adopters, and we talked to them and we asked them, why did you come back? Why we saw that you participated in multiple events. Why is this? And the answer was pretty much always the same. They said, we know if we participate in your platform, what we get back, we're going to be the only person in the world with that particular item. The answer was always usually the same. It's the customization. It's not so much about, making money off of it. It's the customization. And so from those thoughts and from those answers, we said, all right, if this is how our early adopters and our repeat customers feel, maybe, the sports teams and the brands that sponsor those teams, maybe this is an option for them to, as as either a social media campaign or something that they can provide to season ticket holders as a thank you for your support. And so in Boomtown, that's what we were there for. We were there to build our B2B strategy. So we went from selling to the fans to selling to the brands. And through that, our cost per event is significantly lower because we have partners now with, our NFL partners are the Detroit Lions, the Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, Houston Texans, Tennessee Titans. All these teams are paying us to use our service, but we don't have to pay the players anymore because they have obligations through the teams and through those brands. So now our costs have significantly decreased from, we're on average 5,000 per event to now it's, $200, $250. So now we can look up and we can say, oh, now I can see how this thing can scale. Now it makes sense. Now we're not spending $5,000, $10,000 for, a quarterback in the NFL to use it. We're getting paid for him to use it, and we're not having to worry about those celebrity relations. So our B2B shift, and we struggled. It took us a year to make a cent. So in March of this year, our revenue was zero. And we caught a lucky break. COVID-19 turned our product from a vitamin to a drug. Now and like I said, we were doing zero in revenue. Now we're doing $250,000 a month. And it's, now, it's those brands and those teams realizing that, oh, this isn't just, something that's cute that makes sense. We can actually leverage this and resell it to our sponsors and to our brands as an activation that, that the fans really enjoy. So, those scaling issues that haunted us in the fall of 2018 about scaling, the number of events and, we don't worry about those anymore because we've, successfully pivoted to a B2B model.
Well, you mentioned COVID. That's certainly an accelerant in many ways to having to innovate in new and different ways. If you look at SportsTech, Jose, we have 8 strategic investment areas. Would love to spend a little time. What are your favorite investment areas? I can chime in on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up, well, what's interesting, so one of our investment areas is the business of sports, right? And for me, I love business. I love building companies, regardless of what vertical they are in. And what gets me excited about specifically business of sports is the idea that regardless of whether it's even related to sports, you're building a company that can really solve a problem for teams, that can help make money in the industry and build exciting companies that can then also solve problems outside of sports too. So it's not just limited to one vertical. And so as somebody who just loves startups and building businesses, that one really stands out. And then I have a bit of an affinity for our other vertical around media and entertainment, specifically because in the early days of Boomtown, we really focused on ad tech and then media and marketing as a vertical. And more recently, those types of companies have been, performing really well due to COVID, because, ad tech and everything is kind of flourishing. But back then it wasn't cool, and it was always the unsexy space. Nobody thought ad tech was relevant, but we, as a result, we doubled down on it and said, no one's investing here. Let's follow up in this space, and it's paying off more recently. But as a result, those are the media space and the business of sports verticals. Those are really exciting for me.
Yeah, well, you look at COVID and the fact that sports went on pause and then some safely came back, but had to do it without fans in the stadiums. So that has been a really interesting one for us. There's the obvious sort of touchless experience pieces there, but if you look at a partner like ours, NASCAR, they are dealing with a size and scale at their racetracks that is really tough tech to solve for. I mean, you're talking about Daytona, you can fit 15 football stadiums in the infield itself. So challenging if you want to have a dense Wi-Fi experience. You can't have those access points all over the place when you have properties that huge, and you have fans that go there and camp the weekend in, and they try to make the sport as accessible as possible. So that's one that I think is an interesting space, is particularly relevant right now as we get past COVID and we get more fans back in the stands. I think sports betting, more from the standpoint of just the pure revenue opportunity behind it, it could, some of the predictions, it will displace the traditional revenue streams of media rights, sponsorships, everything at the event itself from a merchandise standpoint as well. So there's some really interesting places there. We've seen some great companies come through. And I completely echo what you were saying, Jose, that at the end of the day, you're almost investing in the team as much as you are in the product and the technology, because it's really about being coachable, and exactly what you experienced, Josh, going through it, being willing to challenge your assumptions. Do you really understand your customer? All of those pieces. So I think we only have about 5 minutes left on our time together. So one thing I just wanted to ask you, Josh, so here you are at the 5-year mark. Where do you see Fangage in 5 years from now?
It's a good question. It's actually like a scary question, honestly, because I don't even know what 5 weeks from now looks like. I don't think any of us do, to be honest. But it's all about that international growth. We're having a lot of success in the North America market, specifically in the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball. But that's not why we built the product. We feel like we have something that can go across any border. So right now it's prepping for the Tokyo Olympics. We have big dreams, big hopes of sending autographs in different languages to all parts of the world. I think the Olympics will be a great case study for us to kind of flex our international muscle. We have stars, superstars from, parts of the world where, they might go to Tokyo and win a gold medal. They're still in Tokyo, and by the time they get home to Russia, or by the time they get back home to England, kind of that star's kind of sizzled out, but people still want to access them, and there's just not a lot of ways to do it. So, we feel like our platform is tailor-made for those international stars to kind of, be able to send something back to their hometown. So, we're circling the Tokyo Olympics, and then in 2024, we have the Olympics in Paris. So it's all about that international growth, being able to cross over to European soccer, but, with that, not every country, they all have different internet rules. So we have to be able to use, social media hashtags to upload photos, text message to upload photos, WeChat to upload photos. So, now it's all about that international expansion. And in 5 years, we'll look up and we'll have 2 Olympic Games underneath our belts, and we've sent thousands of autographs in different languages, and and then we can establish ourselves as kind of that international autograph market that doesn't really exist right now. So, and if we can do that, then I think we'll look up, like you said, in that 5-year mark, and maybe I'll have a couple guest rooms like y'all.
Well, I mean, I think it says a lot to the testament of you as well, that you had the Snapchat moment in the Denver airport. You could have easily gotten on the plane and put up a movie, but instead you got straight to work, and a ton of learnings along the way. And I have full faith that on the other side of COVID, this just remains. It's an engaging fan experience, with international opportunities to come. So,
Appreciate that,
and
Jenna.
Jose, I wanted to make sure thank you for joining the discussion. Any last final words or thoughts?
No, I think if you're an entrepreneur, if you're wanting to build a company out there, I think you should try it. And it's not as scary as it might seem if you've never started a company before. Just start with like I do, and the smallest point is just looking for problems around you, right? Just look for ways to things around you that are not as you'd like them to be, or that are broken. And just write them down and then start talking to people about them. And you might find that 2 or 3 people get excited and say, and somebody's got skill sets you don't have, and you say, hey, let's actually solve this together. And then from there, it's a really smooth process to, okay, let's build a prototype, and then let's start, send it to some customers and see if they're willing to pay, or like pre-purchase or anything. So it really starts with those small steps of just looking for problems people have and seeing if you're somebody that's willing to help solve them. And you can, then you can't start building companies, or you can't stop building companies.
Exactly. Well, the backdrop of sports, it is such a unifier, it brings us together, it kind of obliviates geographies. We follow fans, we follow athletes. So if you are innovating in the space of sports technology, we would love for you also to check out Comcast and VCU Sports Tech. Our URL is comcastsportstech.com. You can see our investment areas. We're in the middle of our selections process now. But again, we believe that shaping the future of our sports is important. So thanks for sharing insights about what it takes to be a startup founder on so many different levels. Back to your point, Jose, about you need to break it up into manageable pieces so that the fear doesn't get in the way. And that's what accelerator opportunities like Sports Tech are all about. So thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it. And here's to some more innovative and exciting fan experiences for us all.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jenna.
Thanks, hashtag sports again.